All right, excellent. Thanks for joining us today. We're doing a bit of a Xero training session in the demo side of it, looking at quarterly reporting. Really excited to have everyone along today because obviously you're investing in yourselves and investing in your business to make sure that you're always leveling up on what you're learning. And if you're utilizing a really great tool like Xero, well, then you need to leverage it. You need to understand how you can use it to your advantage so that you can make better decisions in business, because ultimately that's what data does. Data is telling you a story, and as a business owner, you need to make a decision from that story that's been told to you. So today, we're about empowering you in understanding that reporting and what it means, deciphering some of those financial insights to, if you've got it on your reporting, well, what does it mean and what action should I take, and what opportunities you can identify from that, because that's what it's about, is what opportunities are there for you, obviously to make more money, build your profit. Some practical skills in doing it. So there might be a quicker way. You might have been doing it a bit of an arduous way, doing it through downloading some data and doing it through spreadsheets. But today is utilizing Xero to do all of that for you. And of course, engaging with experts. So we utilize Xero every day. We're always in it. If there's something we don't know, we obviously do some training to find out and lean on each other as needed. And it's a tool that I think it really helps our relationships with our clients, because we can sit there together and look at the data. So if we go into Xero, you'd all be familiar with the dashboard where I am now, and I'm utilizing the demo company. So there's some more data that I've imported in there just so that we can have some more numbers in there to see and what's going on. So the first thing that I wanted to go through is looking at our dashboard for our reports. So obviously along the top, we're going to go to our accounting area and we're going to click on our reporting. You'll notice that when I did that, that whole table brought up a whole different lot of reports. I'll show you again, is all these reports here. And you might want to know, how do I get my reports on there? So the one that I always look at. So if you do your own business activity statements, you always want to see your your activity statement on there. So to do that in your reporting, all you do is you star them as your favorite, and then they'll start turning up in that menu for you. In Xero, there's lots it can do. So you want to try and reduce the noise. So you want to star the reports that you're just utilizing all the time. So you don't have to go in here and you don't have to spend a minute trying to figure out which report is it that I want to run. Xero make it really easy. They break it up into like the disciplines you're looking up. So if you've got payroll and you've got a payroll query that you need to run a report for, if you're looking at your customers who haven't paid me, where am I going to go and look at that? Looking at your payables and receivables. Or it's as simple as just going up the top and typing in what report it is that you're looking for, that you can do as well. So for myself, I'm just going to jump in and have a quick look at probably the most basic report that all business owners should be running. We call this quarterly reporting because at a minimum, you should be running your reports quarterly and sitting back and having a look at them. Obviously, if you've got time to run them sooner, depending on the size of your business and how much you enjoy getting into reading the data, is up to you, but it should be done at least quarterly in your business. So let's have a look at the first one, just being that profit and loss statement. I would assume that potentially everyone's run a profit and loss statement, or you've seen it with your accountant where you've sit down and you've gone through it, which is fine. But in the report, you want to make sure that it's built in a way that is telling you, or it's going to alert you to things when you need to be alerted to. You can see here in the demo company here, there's a few functionalities. So you can look at your different date range, whether you want to look at it monthly or quarterly. You can do comparisons in there as well, depending on what you're doing. So if you're running quarterly, you can compare it with other quarters as well to see which quarters you're performing well in. I'm not sure if anyone is utilizing tracking indicators. So sometimes you might use tracking indicators when you've got, say, different outlets across different areas or different towns. So you might want to be tracking the performance of each of those outlets for you to see if you've got multiple locations. And tracking categories are there to be utilized if you wish. And obviously you can, filter There's other, those tracking categories are on that filter as well in that space. The other thing to take note of is it's important when you're lodging your activity statements, if you're registered for GST, is that you're lodging them either in accrual or cash basis. If you're small business and your turnover is, maybe under that $1 million mark, you probably more than likely be on that cash basis reporting to the ATO. But once you get over that $1 million mark of business in revenue, that's when you're probably going to be having some good conversations with your accountant about, should I be changing to that accrual basis accounting? What it is, etc. I'm not going to go into that today, but it's just to let you know that there is those choices to choose there. And for Xero, it always sits on accrual, so you have to go in and change it if you want to have a look at the cash basis. So it automatically runs a report, and it's telling me all the different things, such as the things that you're looking for in a profit and loss is, what's my income, what are my sales, what's going on, what have I been spending my money on? So that's great. You can run that report and you can have a look at it. But so what? You need to measure it against something. And that's where the power of doing custom-made quarterly reports is really important. So to do our custom reports is we've got this function down here on all of our reporting I should say all of the reporting that's been updated. And I believe that most reports now have been updated by Xero, where you can edit your layout. So if you just click on that, it'll take you into a screen. I'm not sure if you've had a look around in it before. Sorry, it's just a little bit slow. I've turned everything off, but obviously you just can't help it when we're recording. And on Google Meet, sometimes it does slow down a little bit. So what I'm going to do here, there's a lot of different functions you can do in your reporting. You can add different columns. So maybe you wanted to add like your budget in there. Maybe you got some formulas that you want to see how what it's comparing to last quarters, those different things. You might want to know percentages. You can also add, so that's in the column space. You can also add rows as well. So you might want to group some of your expenses together. And you may have noticed that when I had my the profit and loss up before, it had sales online and sales bricks and in store. So you've got sort of two sales items coming through. I'll just refresh the screen. Doesn't seem to want to work for me today. That's a bit annoying. We'll give it another go though. So I'd go into my profit and loss again. So that's where I was saying about the sales. So I've got in-store and online. So potentially for this business, maybe it's just started an online presence, that it might want to start tracking all of the sales they're doing online and what they're actually doing within store as well. Because obviously if you're running a business and you've got a bricks and mortar, there's more costs involved with that. So maybe they're looking at transitioning to online only, or maybe they just want to explore it and see what happens. So let's try and edit that layout again. Oh, here we are. So now it's decided to work, which is great. So it's just giving you the bones of everything. It's got all of your different charts that you've got, even though they might not have any data in there on that last report, but it's got all of it there together. So maybe we're looking at this particular organization and we've decided that maybe we want to group some of our expenses together so that we can see, well, how much are we spending, all those items listed together, how much are we spending on that particular expense? So to do that, I want to add a row. So I click on rows and I want to do a group. And I want to move it down to my expenses. And it doesn't really matter what I grab. It's just about, you just knowing the functionality of how to do it. And an easy one to always do is our motor vehicles. We always want to have a look at like what am I spending on my cars? Maybe you've got multiple cars there as well that you're utilizing. Let's go. Maybe we've got our insurances are all motor vehicle insurances, so we want that under there as well. It could be, let me see, what else we got in there? I think there was repairs as well. So we've created a group there, and you can put a name on here. So you might call it motor vehicle expenses. And then you would update your layout. So then now I've added that extra row into my profit and loss report, and I'm like, wow, I really want to I want to track my motor vehicle expenses. Maybe I've got, multiple different cars or something operating. Obviously, when you're in that, say maybe you're a tradie with multiple pieces of equipment, you might want to track, well, which one's costing me money? Am I getting return? That return of investment on that piece of equipment that I'm utilizing. So you might have multiple different groups that you've done. So now I've got this report, I've added that new line. If I go out of it, I've lost it. So I've got to build it every single time. But in Xero, there's a way there where you can save it. So if you go save as, and you want to save it as a custom report. What's really important is you need to change, you need to add something to make it unique. So you might call this MV for motor vehicle, but I don't want to make it the custom report, the default report, because otherwise you lose access to that profit and loss report at the touch of a finger. So let's not make it the default. We'll just keep it as a custom report, and we've renamed it there. So now we can save it. So now I can run this report, and every time it's going to have that line item in there of that motor vehicle expenses for me. If I change the months, it's not going to matter. Maybe I go back to last month. Maybe I want to compare it with this month as well, and update it. So you can see how that line item has stayed in there so that you can sort of track it as to what's going on. Okay, so we've done a little bit of a tweak on the report. What else might we want to do? So if I go up to my accounting, and if I go to custom reports now, I did build another one just before. So I've called this the profit and loss, looking at the percentages. So what I'm looking at here is my gross profit, to see what that is here. So in a percentage manner. So what it's saying here is my trading income minus my cost of sales, multiplier, and then what my percentage is there. So I might have a rule of thumb that I want to stick to try and make sure that if my stock, or say if I was buying stock, that it wasn't costing me more than what I've actually got in my sales. So it's important to make sure I'm keeping a track of that. There's a whole range of different things. Another report you might want to run, you could add some columns. You might want to add your budget in there as well. Xero has made it super easy, where there's an actual report that you can run where you can have your budget automated and already come up in it. So what I'll first do is I'll show you where you go to build your budget, and then the report that Xero already have that you can utilize in order to see the comparison of your budget, which is really important. So if we go to accounting, and I'm just going to go to reports. And if I go to my budget manager reports, this is where I'm going to build my budget. The date I'm going to look at is, I'm just going to look at from January this year. And you can see here how I've got some figures populated in there, ready to go for this calendar year is what I've got in there at the moment. As to what I'm estimating my sales at, my cost to, my purchases that I've got going on, etc. You'll notice when you're populating this, you can go through and you can type in, whatever figures you want to add in here, and you can go directly across and change it up and add it all in manually. Or there's a really cool tool here in Xero where you can click on this green arrow and it's going to automate it. And there's different choices. You can do a fixed amount. You can adjust it each month by maybe $20 or $1,000 if you're going through a growth stage where you're trying to build up that the revenue, or you can do it by a percentage so that it's just going to go up by a certain percentage every month. And then you just click on that apply, and then it populates all the way across in there. So it's got a period of 12 months. And you just keep going through, understanding what your expenses are and populating some data into Xero's budget manager. A good thing to do is you could look at if you've had a year in business already in Xero, you can have a look at the data you've got and look at inputting it into your budget manager. But of course, expenses go up. So you need to make sure there's those adjustments. Maybe you've got more subscriptions. Maybe you've got different things going on in your business. So you save that. And then I'm going to go to accounting, and the report I'm looking at is this budget variance. You can see that I've saved it to my favorite, so it's really quick and easy for me to get to. So once I've got a budget populated into the report, I can see what's going on. I can see, am I hitting my targets or not? So for the month of April, you can see that I exceeded my targets. Purchases, I didn't spend as much money, so maybe that's a good thing, or maybe I'm going to run out of stock pretty soon because I couldn't get a hold of it, depending on what your business is and what you're doing. And you just got to be mindful that this is a demo company, so you've only got, it's hard to actually apply this to yourselves. So you're better off jumping in your own file and having a look later and seeing, well, what does this report look like for me? If I don't have a budget in there, then this report isn't going to work. Do I want to put a budget in there? Is it going to help me? And it's not about spending 3 days and 3 nights trying to put together a budget. It's about just getting something in there and then pulling the reports and seeing what they tell you. And then the idea is from the report is that you do something. You do something about it. Either if you've been heavily invested in marketing, your sales are skyrocketing and you're still making profit because you're charging the right amount, well, then you're going to keep going with the advertising. Maybe it is that your wages are skyrocketing, but your sales are going down. So what is it that you need to do there? Do you need to cut back on your staff in what shifts they're getting, or what people you've got within your team? So it tells you all the different things that you should be looking at in your business in one report. And that's why you should be looking at it quarterly, so that you can measure and so that you can adjust, make some key decisions in your business. So I'm not going to, spend hours going through this particular budget report, but it's a really cool tool. If you like spreadsheets and you prefer to look at it in a spreadsheet manner, just jump down to the export, and you can export it to an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can, color code it, do whatever you like in it, but it's got all the data is there for you. You don't have to build it from scratch. That's the whole point. But if you prefer reading Excel, then do it. Prefer Google Sheets, then utilize it. Sometimes it might be PDF. Just depends on how you utilize it. If I wanted to say save this particular report, because I'm like, I want to make sure I'm start saving all my quarterly reports instead of having to go back and rerun them. Again, you can save them as published reports if you wanted to. So you can publish this particular report and go that, this was a budget variance report that I've done for the month of April, all those sorts of things. So obviously in the accounting space, when we're doing reports for clients, we're always going to be publishing our reports for our clients so that they stay in their database on Xero so that they can have a look at them. And then I would save it. I could add anything that I wanted to, add any notes or disclosures, any other reports. You can actually build report packs as well in Xero, but I'm not going to go to that extreme today because it's like a whole other thing to do. But just by having, you can see if you published it every quarter or every month, you could have a whole range of reports that you're publishing. And obviously we've got our custom reports that we talked about. Advisor, I don't think you guys have that. That's where we've got our own templated reports that we pull and we utilize all the time, but we then publish them so that our clients can see them also in their folders. Okay, so that's our reports in that space. The next report I just wanted to show you as well, just so that we can go over it, and recently just did a seminar on this one, is our balance sheet of, okay, what are we doing? What is this balance sheet? So again, I'm using my accounting tab to bring down the menu, and I've got it favorited. So I'm going directly into my balance sheet to see it straight away. So there's 2 things that you should really be looking at straight away when you go into your balance sheet. And that, I'm not sure if you can sort of go, oh, I know what that is, but obviously, please, you don't have to today. But if you just notate in your head, do I know what she's going to ask me? Do you know what it is I'm talking about, the two things? And that would be your accounts payable and your accounts receivable. The two things. So who owes you money and who do you owe money to are all two really good things to have a look at within the balance sheet. The disclosure with that is, though, that if you're a business where you're not actually putting your bills in Xero, well, then your accounts payable isn't going to show up. But if you're invoicing from Xero, well, obviously your accounts receivable are all going to be sitting in there to see who owes you money and how much do they owe you. Let's just change this report to today's date, because there's some more data in there. So, because this is what I'm looking at. What's my balance sheet telling me? If I have a look down, I can see that the equity in the business isn't great. Obviously, it's a demo company though, but it would mean that you need to do something about it. But the two things that I wanted to talk about was the accounts receivable. So you've got 25 grand owing to you in this business when the turnover is not that great. So what's going on? Maybe you need to call in some debtors. And then we've got our accounts payable. So in this particular demo company, they are creating bills in Xero. So therefore, they've got 8 grand in outstanding debt to different suppliers out there. So maybe they've got stock that they're buying. Maybe they've got some contractors they needed to pay because they came in for a project. So it's really important that you look at those two and go, okay, what's going on and what am I going to do? First thing I would look at and go, oh, my accounts receivable. I need to call some bills in. I need to call some people to say, please pay me. So what's an easy way of doing that? There's a report in Xero that makes it super easy for you. It's quite clever. So if you're the only business owner, it's on you to do this particular report. If you've got someone that takes care of your accounts receivable by following them all up, hopefully this never explodes for you. But there's a really cool report that you can both use. So I think I've saved it under my favorites. So it's this aged receivables report. Okay. So who owes me money and how much do they owe me? So there's some things at the top here that we can add. So this is great. It's telling me that, these guys owe me, in a month, they owe me this much money. And these ones are older. So, maybe there's some time that you need to wait to be able to call in some of those funds. But if you're sitting there and you're like, oh, okay, I've got to look up the number for each of these particular customers that I need to speak to, there's a really easy way on here to do it. So what you can do is you can add the contact details, maybe the email and the mobile of who to call, because you've built up your client database in there or your customer database. And then I'm going to update the report. And then, hey presto, I've got a report here that I can export to, say, Excel. And you can give it to your accounts receivable and say, hey, can you start chasing up these people and make sure that they, pay those dues. So it's all at their fingertips as to making that contact. They don't have to jump in and out of another program. You could literally PDF it and give it to them and say, start making calls or can you send out some emails, etc. So it's all there. They know what they need to do, and it just gives you another way of controlling a process of making sure that information is at their fingertips. So what else can I say? Oh, okay. So that's your reporting. There's ways of, you can see this one here it doesn't allow you to add or remove much. You can obviously save it as a custom or publish report. It's mainly those reports that you can build, such as a profit and loss, how you want to see the data that you can utilize in doing that editing. So I encourage you to go away and just build one custom report today, so that start making a promise to yourself. Maybe every week I'll just run them, just so that I can see it and understand what I'm looking for, so that I can make changes in my business for the better. Or that you can make yourself happy because your performance is going really well and it's exciting. It creates that adrenaline rush while you're in the business. The next area that I really wanted to show you, which is really cool within Xero, I believe you should have, some will have access and some won't. It's the analytics space, where you may or may not subscribe to it. But by all means, have a look. So there's a couple of things in here. And the first one I want to have a look at is the business snapshot. So this has given me a little bit of a snapshot of insights into the business. Now, when we were doing a seminar the other day on the balance sheet and the importance of it and the things to look at, we talked about ratios and all different kinds of things. And you'll find that in this business snapshot report, it's telling me, it answers a lot of those things and works it out for me because all the data is in this system, so you can utilize it. It's talking about the profitability, and because everything's hyperlinked, you can actually go in and have a look and see, like, what transactions in Xero are driving that. What's it looking like? It's got income here. It's got comparison periods. Obviously, in a demo company, that's not great, but for yourselves, if you guys have been in business a lot for over a year, you've got to have some data there that you can have a look at and see it. So you've got different expenses. So if your expenses are going up, you might go, oh, wow, I've got, what's going on here with my expenses? Like, so there's, in this case, you're looking, they're creeping directly under your income account. So where's the profitability there? It's got efficiency in the business. So it's got little disclaimers here as well about what does this mean? What is it telling me? And obviously in a demo company, it's not really telling you anything really great. It's got some things to highlight to say, like, oh, you should be looking at these. Your wages and salaries have gone up. Your rent's going sky high. What are you going to do about it? Those sorts of things, so that you can review it. It talks about financial position. So that's where we're looking at that sort of the balance sheet data that we're gathering from. For those of you that recall, like, what the balance sheet is telling us. So, like, where you're sitting, what's in your bank account. Obviously, at this particular point in time, they're low on cash. How long is it taking them to get paid? Well, hey, it's taken 50 days to get paid. Maybe there's something you need to do in that accounts receivable or quoting process with your customers. You're taking 19 days to pay suppliers. That's pretty good. It's not too bad, depending on their terms. Now, this one down the bottom, you'll see there's a little button here where you can say show financial ratios, which is something that we were talking about in our seminar. And it's got all the different ratios here that we were looking at. It does the work for you and tells you the answers. So you remember, with our current ratio, you sort of want to be above 1 for it. And in this case, in the demo company, it's below. So it's not, the business isn't tracking along too well at all. You've got debt ratios, you've got your working capital, all those little things that you can, if you don't understand them and you want to understand them, you can take some time to learn them, to see them, to track them. So then you can understand that when I'm doing this, this is what's changing over here. By running the reports and looking at these dashboards, you can begin to understand. Maybe if you started a marketing campaign and you want to see if it's effective, have my sales driven? Have I done a marketing campaign for my online store? Have my sales on my online store, been bolstered and gone up? If I've added a new team member in my services that we offer, are they actually, when are they becoming profitable? How long is it taking for that team member to become profitable? So what activities can I do to help them become profitable, so therefore become, a viable team member or a beneficial team member for you? So that's where our, reporting comes in. And the other one under the analytics is that short-term cash flow. So in our short-term cash flow projection, if you're doing your invoicing and your billing from Xero, this is where it's going to be really powerful. So you can see when am I going to run out of money? So in this case, you've got the invoices. So it's obviously a period. It's got 30 days. So you can obviously change that as needed. It's got there that, who owes you money? You've got some bills to go out. So what's your projected balance at the end of that 30 days? So that's where those, that's that cash flow projection. But we all know that if we've got, if we haven't done our invoices and they're not up to date, if we haven't got all our bills in there and they're not up to date, that this report really is useless. You need to make sure that you've got everything in Xero and it's up to date when you're running the reports. It'd be great if everyone has a bookkeeper that, keeps it up to date for them, but we know that in reality, in small business, sometimes that doesn't occur and it all falls onto you as that business owner to make that happen. Yeah, so it's got some other breakdowns of obviously some invoices you've got to go through. It's got suggested actions for you of what to do. You don't have to sign up to Xero Analytics. It's just pulling the data for you, but there's no harm in you pulling the data yourself through custom reports so that you do your things you need to do. It's got overdue invoices and it's got, overdue bills. It's saying these are the suggested actions. We already got that when we were looking at the balance sheet, accounts receivable and accounts payable. So we already knew this. It's about working out where you want to get how you want to interpret your data and take action on it. So you don't have to pay for these different features. They just make it all shiny and look all nice for you. But it's up to you as a business owner what you subscribe to and what you want to do. Let me see what else I've got on my notes. Excellent. I think I've covered everything. I think I've kept everyone long enough for today. So what I'll do is I will turn off the recording now.